Whether you're just starting school or getting out of it, whenever there's a big change to your daily structure, it can be really difficult to maintain that level of discipline and get the same amount of work done that you previously used to. I just graduated from college and have a few months off before I start working, and I have a few big things that I want to do in that time. I am pretty passionate about pursuing them, but there are still days where I just don't get that much work done. It's not because of a lack of planning or anything like that. I have daily to-do lists and schedules made, so I know I have to do XYZ, but something or the other seems to come up and I just procrastinate and don't push the needle on the things that I want to do. And when I'm making but not following these personal deadlines, that's when I know I have a problem with my personal discipline. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about ways that I've found to increase my level of discipline, hold myself more accountable, and just get more done when there are no external deadlines. I think fostering discipline is always easier when there's proper planning and accountability in place. So depending on where you are, there might already be some external accountability mechanisms like deadlines for homeworks and assignments if you're in school, or ends of sprints in a corporate environment. These are great if you have them, but incorporating some personal measures of accountability is also a really great idea, because when all those external things get stripped away, you know that you can still get stuff done, even if it's just for you. And so to that end, here are a few things that help me stay more accountable to myself. Time blocking. I love time blocking my to-do list for two reasons. One, it puts a finite limit on how long I should take to do something and stops it from overflowing if it doesn't have to. And two, it takes away the need for hour-to-hour decision making, which is where distractions and activities that aren't aligned to a larger vision can creep in. And you don't have to follow this to a T. Obviously life happens, maybe your priorities change, maybe you have something new that you have to do for the day, whatever the case. But having an explicit structure to your day can really help you just stay focused as you get more and more into the weeds. Hourly journaling. So this is something that I thought of in my last internship, where I just felt like I wasn't making any progress on my project for days on end. So every hour on the hour, I would write down what I did for the past 60 minutes. That's it. And by the end of the day, I'd have this really detailed picture of how I actually spent my day. Having this high-level overview of how you spent your day and what went right and what went wrong can be really powerful to help pull you out of a rut, because it can show you what the main distractions are and how you can optimize your schedule and your environment to do better the next day. The other great benefit in terms of accountability is that when you're in the middle of something and you have an impulse or a distractionary thought come up, you know that you'll have to write down everything that you did, by the end of this hour. So just that alone can be enough to help you refocus and just realign with your work. Publicize it. So this works best for passion projects and personal goals, but essentially once you have a plan and you know where you want to go, tell other people about it. It can seem like extra pressure and increase your fear of failure, but if you choose the right people, they can really motivate you and help keep you going even when you're feeling down or discouraged. A lot of startups and tech companies actually use this idea to announce a date for a product release, even if they're not really close to finishing it, to push themselves to at least get it done by that date. While you don't have to go this far, something like posting a story about your progress or telling a friend to expect a rough draft by this date can be really motivating for some people. So if this sounds interesting to you, definitely try it out and let me know how it goes. I'm actually really curious to see. My second tip is to pause and evaluate. Every second, every minute, we are bombarded with these small impulses and decisions that we have to make. For example, do I open that text and talk with that person, or do I keep studying for this test? I feel a little hungry right now. Should I take a break now or later? And so on. And there's no real or right answer. It all depends on the context. But what's important is that you're making those decisions consciously and with your broader intentions in mind. You have to question and justify every decision that you make. When distracting impulses come up, it's our willpower and our discipline that drives them away. I like to think of willpower as a health meter. And the more that you use in rejecting an impulse, the less you'll have for later. But discipline is like a shield meter on top of that. So the higher your discipline, the longer it'll take before you need to rely on willpower. It doesn't matter how you pause and evaluate. It could be taking a deep breath whenever you feel like quitting, or journaling your thoughts and emotions as they come up. Whatever the mechanism, building the skill will have a ton of benefits beyond just building your discipline and willpower. And again, talking about those small decisions throughout the day, it's important to remember that momentum always builds, whether it's positive or negative. Doing something consistently will propel you to have feelings to continue doing the same, whether that means you are actively working towards something you care about or avoiding it. Obviously, when you're on a roll and making meaningful progress towards something, that's amazing. But I think the feelings you can have after you procrastinate on something are especially bad, because they're a mix of guilt and low self-esteem, which can really dampen any motivation you have to actually get on with something. If enough days of this are strung together, it can really start to whittle down your discipline that you're trying to cultivate, because it's just really difficult to want to start again and again and again. So while it's difficult and not always possible to build positive momentum, it's really important to stop negative momentum from building. So let's say you had a day when you just didn't want to work on a script for a video. Well, that's okay. You can still intentionally do something small, like rewriting a past script or thinking of visualization ideas for a new one. And in that way, you're still kind of doing something towards the thing that you care about and continuing to build that positive momentum. So to me, discipline is actively choosing to do something that you set out to do, even when it's difficult or a more attractive option is present. And the best way to do this is to know yourself better, know your strengths and your weaknesses, and make it harder to indulge your weaknesses. A good way to do this is to keep a note for a day or two and keep track of all the impulses you get, the distractions you face, the decisions you make and why, how you feel during and after you've intentionally worked on something, and how you feel during and after you give in to an impulse. And this can be a little difficult, to admit where you fell off and why, but pushing through and getting to the root of it can be really helpful in figuring out the subconscious patterns of deviation that you have. And once you know what you struggle with and the most common things that hit your willpower bar, you can start to make contingency plans. These are just actions you pre-plan to take when specific impulses come up. So for me, my two biggest negative impulses are an itch to check my phone and random thoughts I get that I just have to investigate. So for the phone thing, I can really choose to pause and evaluate, right, like I mentioned before. And for my random thoughts, I have a notepad where I just stash those. And the best part about this is that over time, your brain will stop pushing these impulses as much because it's just not getting that same shot of instant gratification. And so your ability to stick to what you're doing, your discipline increases. So if you couldn't tell, I think that reflecting and talking to yourself and writing things down are really crucial to identifying where you really are and what you need to improve on. It's not easy and it does take a good amount of effort to do consistently. And actually something that I'm struggling with right now is doing a daily recap. I was inspired to do this by a quote from John Dewey that says, "We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience." And so I chose to do this daily recap and I kept it very bare bones, just asking myself what I planned, what went well and what didn't, and how I can improve for tomorrow. And the few times I've done it, it's actually proved to be quite useful and helped me set up a more successful tomorrow. But I don't know, just something about it doesn't stick. By the time I get to bed, I'm just too tired and I haven't been able to keep up with it. So I'm still trying to figure out how to make it easier and more accessible, but I just want to include this to say that, it's okay, right? Like any tip that we get, we will have to tune to our brains and our schedules, and it's just a personal journey to get there. So these are just some of the things that I've used and I'm currently using to help me cultivate self-discipline and stay accountable. It's a really weird time in my life, just not having a traditional structure, but these things have helped me continue to do what I want to do and not waste away the days. And if any of these resonate with you, or if you have your own things that you do, feel free to leave a comment and like the video if you did, subscribe, and I hope you tune back in next week. Thanks.